and welcome to the Audacious Path Show, a micro podcast of courage, resilience, and inspiration. I am your host, Andrea Scott Brown. Thank you so much for joining us, where our podcast is perfectly imperfect and frequently infrequent. This pocket-sized podcast is here as an inspirational nugget for you in this moment. Each interview episode of the Audacious Path Show, our guest shares a story in their lives where they struggle to stay on their audacious path. Each story is related to an area of the Audacious Path Compass. And if you want to learn more about the Audacious Path Compass, you can find the link in the show notes. Today we're talking about the segment of the compass called Family. And now it's time to introduce our guest today, Ryleigh Klemenko. Ryleigh is a business sales coach, mentor of the Facebook community Money Flow Mentors, and mother to 3 rambunctious kids. Welcome to the Audacious Path Show, Ryleigh.
Hi, Andrea. I am so excited to be here, and I hope that this message really lands with your audience, and I hope it resonates.
Ryleigh, I'm so glad you're here, and I think it will. So I'm looking forward very much to hearing your story.
Thank you so much for having me with you.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And now I'll let you take it away.
A time I struggled to follow my audacious path was in 2016. I'm going to rewind the clock back to the beginning, January of 2016, and I was on my honeymoon with my husband. We had just gotten married a few months before, a destination wedding in Jamaica, but as you can imagine, having a destination wedding isn't really quite all the vacation that you would imagine when you're running around trying to get everything ready. So we decided to go on a honeymoon to Thailand and had an absolute blast. We were in a street market. It was hot, it was sweaty, and we wanted to get some fresh juices. So I went over to a vendor, and the vendor looked at me and said, "Newlywed?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Give this to your husband." And it was a red drink. And I didn't know what it was. And I said, "Well, what's this?" And he said, "It's for vitality." Well, I gave it to my husband, and fast forward a few months, we were pregnant. And not only were we pregnant, but we were pregnant with twins. And not only were we pregnant with twins, but we were pregnant with what's called monoamniotic monochorionic twins, which is one of the rarest types of twin pregnancies known to man. It happens in 1% of all twin pregnancies. And so my life changed very dramatically, very quickly. I went from being entirely focused on my career, on my path, to knowing that I was going to be hospitalized in a few short weeks, and knowing that it wasn't a matter of if my twins were going to have NICU time if they made it, but how much NICU time they would actually have, if there were going to be developmental opportunities, if, how our lives were going to be uprooted really rapidly. And one thing that I am not proud of that happened right here during this time frame is my company actually offered me a severance package while I was on maternity leave. They said that my position had been consolidated, and that terrified me because I had two little people to now take care of, and all of those other things, and I needed my job. And so I went back to work 4 weeks after they got out of the NICU. I'm not proud of it, but I did because I felt like I had to. If I needed to show that I cared about this company, that I was going to put the company first, and that I was gonna do what I needed to do so I could maintain my position. And they did. I stayed in hotels with my little tiny babies that were fresh out of the NICU. I stayed in hotels with them. I traveled back and forth with the au pair, and it was a time frame that I look back on in a way as being one of the biggest lessons of my life. So in 2020, I actually was again pregnant with now my son. I didn't know at the time though. And after having him in the very beginning of the pandemic, when everything was shut down, I was left with another choice. I could go back to work and do a very similar thing to what I did in 2016 after having my twins, or I could pave my own path. And I looked into my son's eyes and I decided that there was nothing in this world that made me want to miss out on the moments that mattered. And I decided it was time for me to build my own legacy.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today, Ryleigh. It is such an inspiration to understand the why behind your business. why you created what you've created, the inspiration of your family to build the legacy that you have. And I appreciate you sharing the lessons that you've learned along the way and the learnings from the decisions that you've made in the past. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
It was my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say, if anyone would like to continue to follow me or learn more about conversational sales and a little bit more about what I do, please feel free to follow me over on Facebook at Money Flow Mentors, which is my Facebook community. And I also left a little gift for you guys in the notes for this particular podcast episode. So thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome, and it's such a pleasure to talk with you as always. This is the end of another episode of the Audacious Path Show, a micro podcast. For more inspiration and to listen to all episodes, go to audaciouspath.com and click on podcast, or look for us on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for the Audacious Path Show, a micro podcast. Please remember, you are not alone, and you are right where you are meant to be. Breathe in, and when you decide to do so, take the next step on your audacious path. Thank you so much for being here, and come and join us again next time. Here's to your audacious path.